I am Laura Dixon, and you are listening to the Naturally Thin for Life podcast, episode number 83, How Celia Lost 20 Pounds in 12 Weeks. Welcome to the Naturally Thin for Life podcast. I'm going to teach you how to get out of your diet brain so that you too can be naturally thin for life. No counting, restricting, or obsessing. I am going to take the mystery out of it for you so that you can become naturally thin starting today. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. This week, I have something really special and exciting to share with all of you. I'm talking with Celia, who joined the Naturally Thin for Life program only 12 weeks ago, and she's already lost 20 pounds. She's going to share with you her journey so far and what has helped her the most lose the weight and how she did it. I very purposefully have held off on sharing other women's journeys with you. Celia and I talk more about this on the episode, so make sure you listen to this part as well. But so often we are lured into diet or weight loss programs because we've seen that other people have had success, right? How many before and after pictures have you looked at? I used to look at 1 million before and after pictures. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter if someone else lost weight. Their brain is not in your body. You have to believe it's possible for you no matter what, and learn how to use your own brain to understand your own body. That's why you never need external accountability when you're naturally thin. And Celia and I talk about that as well on the episode. We so falsely believe that, well, someone had a nice before and after picture, so it must work, right? Maybe it worked temporarily. Maybe it worked for that person. Maybe that person doesn't have the autoimmune diagnosis that you have. Maybe that person didn't just have a baby. Maybe that person has a completely different body, a completely different personality type where their brain isn't obsessing all of the time about losing weight. Who knows? But just because it worked for that person more than anything, I want you to not need to rely on other people's before and after pictures like we're so used to with typical diet programs, so that you build the trust in yourself and the confidence in your own ability to be naturally thin, so that it doesn't matter what other people around you are doing. Because when you rely on someone else's journey in their before and after pictures that so many of us have looked at, and then we go and we do the program, and I did this time and time again. I was like, all right, well, those people did it, so now I'm going to do it. And then I didn't have the same success that they had. And then I used to beat myself up about it and tell myself, see, not going to happen for you. What I want you to see is that you can become naturally thin just because you want to. And I don't know if you've noticed, but most people, at least most people that I've met in my own life, are thinking about their weight pretty consistently. Most people don't have the freedom of being naturally thin. You cannot get that freedom from anywhere other than your own mind. You have to learn how to experience that freedom as you lose the weight, and you don't get that freedom from before and after pictures. And what I want you to really take away, especially from Celia's story, is listen to that freedom that she has in her voice. And over the next few months, I am going to be sharing more women's journeys with you. And today, as you hear Celia talk, use her story to show yourself how it is so possible for you to become naturally thin. Grow the belief for yourself that you can do this. Use her story to look at where you personally have doubt. Use her story to help you overcome that doubt, to help you see that this is something you can do, you can have it. And not because she's doing it, but because the freedom of being naturally thin is always available to you. And now you are just seeing how that is true through the lens of her story. All right, my friends, enjoy. Today, for everyone on the podcast, I have Celia. And so Celia and I are just going to chat a little bit about her naturally thin journey. And I just want to hear from you what it's been like and help other people see really that it's possible for them. For me personally, and I don't know what your experience has been like, one of the things that I always struggled with was like, oh, like, could I do that? Like, there's these other people out there that can do it, but I don't know if I could actually lose weight and keep it off and not have it be this like torturous process. So I'd love to hear. Why don't you share a little bit about you and your journey and what it's been like?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me, Laura. Well, I think I want to start out with sharing what kind of led me to you, because I know that a lot of women struggle with the same things that I struggled with. And I had reached a milestone birthday last year. I turned 40 and I made this commitment that for my 40th birthday and from 40 and beyond, that I was going to like really prioritize my health and just get healthier and more vibrant as time went on. So I was working out really consistently, more than I had in the previous years. And the scale and my waistline were doing the opposite of what I wanted when I started working out. And I found out that this is actually very common for women, that we kind of get frustrated with our weight and then we start working out, but then we get the opposite result of what we want. And so I was about 6 months into that and was like, okay, I need help. I need support. And I remember going through like the women that I knew that helped women lose weight. And then I found you and I was like, oh my gosh, like she's speaking exactly to me. Like I literally like went through their profiles and like checked out like what their messaging was and who they were targeting. And when you helping these type A obsessive personality women, I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like I just felt like everything was speaking directly to me. And I knew that it was the right place. And so because of that, we'll talk about like what's come as a result, but I just wanted to share that because it was really frustrating to be just on that yo-yo of, especially gaining weight when I'm taking these actions trying to lose weight.
Yeah. So now that you have lost some weight, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, do you know why you weren't when you were exercising?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is when you exercise more, you burn more calories and then you feel hungrier. So I would always eat more and eat more and eat more when I would exercise because I would be burning off my calories and I would be more hungry. And so then I would eat more. And then that was the problem, because then I would like overeat and I might burn more calories and I might like eat more than I was before I was exercising. Yeah. So it's definitely how I was eating and what I was eating. And yeah, I would say that that's probably the big thing.
Yeah. And so do you exercise now?
I do.
So what do you think changed for you now that you still exercise?
Well, I only do exercise that I love and do movement that I love. That's one of my intentions. And I don't exercise to lose weight.
So good. That's like my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's right. It makes it all so much more fun when it's not like, and I have to do this crazy exercise program or whatever we put ourselves through. And then it's like, we don't enjoy the exercise and we don't get the benefit of losing weight. And then we're like, well, forget this.
Yeah. So the whole relationship with exercise. And so I look at it as something like it might help me with my journey and it might like accelerate some results, but I don't do it because of that. I just know that like that's an outcome of doing it. But I also know that if I didn't exercise, that I would still lose weight.
Yes. Yeah. And there's so much freedom in that it's like, right. I used to be at the place where I'd be like, I have to exercise today. And if I don't, then I'm going to gain weight. And then it's like life happens some days and you don't exercise. And then you're just like so anxious about, that's at least how I was, like anxious about not exercising. And I'm like, to ease the anxiety, I think I'll have some food. Which just like makes it worse.
Yeah. Yes. And I think somewhere, I don't know if it's in the podcast or if it's in Naturally Thin for Life in the program, where you talk about like how we'll kind of punish ourselves, right? Like I overate. And so now I really have to hit it hard at the gym tomorrow for 2 hours or, and so exercise becomes this form of punishment. And that creates a whole other level of emotional anxiety around it.
Yes, totally. So tell us a little bit about what it's been like for you. Tell us how much weight you've lost, if you're willing to share. Tell us what that journey of losing weight has been like.
Yes. So I have lost 20 pounds
So
in
good.
just about right at 12 weeks. So that's been amazing. Something that just landed with me, like as I've been, losing that next 5 pound cycle, I had reached like 17 and 18. It was going up to 20 and really like getting on the scale and looking at the scale and my weight and realizing that when I was 20 pounds lighter, like, I don't know, like 16 years ago, how when I was lighter, my self image was still like with the heavier version of me. Right. So it's like I sit and I look at the scale and it's like, okay, I weigh 20 pounds more than I did 16 years ago or 15 years ago. But like my self image now is more aligned with the version of me that's 20 pounds lighter. That's like the best
Yes.
way that I can put it. So it's like my relationship with myself and my body is totally different. And how I used to really abuse myself to lose weight. Like when I look at pictures of like when I had lost weight, how like uncomfortable and how I treated myself and my relationship with food. I mean, it was so unhealthy. And it was just like this really like painful, traumatic process that I used to go through. And so in losing 20 pounds in, 12 weeks, 3 months, it's been this process where I like learned who I am. I've learned about my emotions. I love myself. I love getting on the scale.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's such a different relationship to the whole process and who I am as a person.
Yes. And I think that's like the one thing, if I could help just like all women in particular, all people, but obviously I'm a woman. So especially women is right. Like, yes, losing weight is amazing, right? Like having a smaller body weight, like there's some like fun and enjoyment in that and like just comfort and ease. But like the real freedom is when it just is like, you just like love being in your own skin. You like love being in your own body. So it's like, I got down to a very low weight and I was miserable. It's like insanity. And so we try to control the number on the scale to make us feel better. But it's like the only way to actually change the number on the scale for good is to learn how to feel better first, which is
Yes.
so like kind of a mind trip for a lot of our brains because we're just so taught and like sort of indoctrinated to believe like, well, when you're thin, you'll be happy. At least that's what I always thought, like trying to lose weight. And it's like, you have to be like content and happy and develop that confidence and learn how to be with your emotions as you're losing the weight.
Yes, I agree. And I think for me, there are like so many layers of complexity that we go through in like our relationship to our body and losing weight. And I know for me, so personally, like I have an autoimmune condition, I have a lot of food sensitivities and just foods that my body doesn't react well to. And then I have like so then that would cause me like food anxiety, right? When it was time to go to a family gathering or, some kind of event or go to a restaurant. And so like all of those things like layered and stacked for me. And, going through Naturally Thin for Life has helped me to like basically process through all of that stuff and figure it out and unpack it and like acknowledge it and realize that it's like a thing because it's not something that we have conversations about, right? Like, so like being able to like work through that and be coached on those things. Like, I'm really anxious. There's a family gathering. These are all the things that happen and why I'm anxious about it. And just like work through it and then go to the family gathering and not overeat and not eat food that I don't enjoy and not come home bloated and all of those things. It's like those wins are what like start to compound and like make the lifestyle changes. So the anxiety becomes a win because you learn how to like navigate through it.
Yes. Yeah. So what do you think for you has been, tell me first, what's been easier than you thought?
Definitely, like I said before, I had like the food sensitivities. So, like identifying the food that serves me and just being really clear about food that serves me, food that doesn't serve me. It's just made my eating choices like so much more natural. And it's like not that something I feel like I have to justify or I have to explain or that has to be a big drama. So that's been amazing because it's just completely eliminated all the anxiety around eating and those family gatherings and everything. So the food that serves me has been the biggest thing that's just been the easiest.
Yeah. What do you think made that easy for your brain to kind of get on board with that? Because I too have some food sensitivities. So, like, for example, I don't eat dairy just because I get really like constipated and bloated for like days. And so I just choose not to eat dairy because I feel that way. But I never feel like, oh no, there's dairy. I can't have it like ever. And so, like, that for me is because I never tell myself I can't have something. It's just like, it just doesn't serve me and it doesn't feel good. So it's not worth it to me. But I'm curious what helps you with some of your food sensitivities to be able to choose food that serves you and not feel restricted and deprived.
Hmm. Well, I think it's like what you just mentioned. I think it was, it's for me, it was like that acknowledgement of like, this food does not serve me. And I think I used to have that relationship of like, you can't have it. Like,
Mm,
it's not, you can. And so, yes, I could have it. And like, I'm sensitive to dairy too. And I don't do well with it. And sometimes, like last weekend, I had some parm crisps because we have those on our camping trip sometimes. And so I know, like, okay, if I eat this food, I might have a little reaction to it. And I acknowledge that ahead of time. But I also know that, like, if I did it on a daily basis, that I might not feel good and it might, have the opposite direction. So I think it's like going into it knowing that it doesn't serve me if I do happen to eat it, or because sometimes I want to experiment too and say, well, like, how does my body feel with this now?
hmm.
And then if it doesn't feel good with it, then it's like, okay, well then I won't eat it. But yeah, it's not like this punishment or deprivation. But then there's also those foods that like really feel good. Like I love salads and I love to like do this whole thing with my big salads that I make. And so like eating the salad is like, it just feels so good that I'm like more aligned with like having this meal that just like really energizes me and feels good. And I'm more drawn to that than the food that doesn't serve me.
Yeah, totally. Right. It's like kind of just being honest with yourself, like
Yeah.
beforehand, rather than like turning the blinders on and being like, well, I know I can't have this, but I'm not going to be honest with myself and I'm just going to hope for the best. And then you feel totally terrible afterwards. It's like when you know, oh, I'm going to eat this and maybe I won't feel 100%, but I'm not going to also feel terrible. Like you can totally, there's so much freedom in that. You can totally decide. And it's like, I do that times too. I'm like, I am going to eat a little bit more than I'm used to. I'm not going to feel as comfortable as I do maybe on a regular basis. And it's okay. Like that's part of it too. It's not finding this like perfect way of eating where you feel perfect all of the time. And it's just like you never have any discomfort ever, right? It's being able to also know like, oh, when I do this, I will have a little discomfort, but I can choose that. Like it's my choice.
Right.
So I want to hear from you too, a little bit about like how you have worked through the difficult parts and the challenging parts, right? When I think about being naturally thin and having it be something that you do forever, like there is an ease to it in a way that's totally different than a diet. But it doesn't mean it doesn't come with hard parts and challenging parts, right? It's like learning to work through those parts is what makes it easier. But I'm curious for you, what's some of the most challenging parts, some of the hardest parts, and how have you kind of worked through that?
Oh my gosh, let's see. So I would say that, I had mentioned the family gatherings and sort of like the unknowns. Like I'm a planner, I'm a very structured person, but then there were like the unknowns.
Hmm.
And so the unknowns were just over there and it was just like super anxious. And so working through kind of those different scenarios, the first thing was like realizing like I can't like anticipate everything that's going to come up. So there's that like having that attitude of I'm going to take it day by day. So like when we do our buckets, our food that serves us, all of that helps me. Like the night before, I kind of look at what's coming tomorrow. And so I think that's helped me with like a day by day approach of just like looking at, what's coming up tomorrow. And like, if I don't know what I'm going to eat because we're going out, I'm like, okay, like I'm all right with that. So I think that just all of like kind of like the looking ahead of like what might come up and then being prepared to address it and be okay with, the outcome, I think has been the big thing. So that's been one of the challenging parts is like going through the unknowns. And then I think the other thing is the relationship to myself and my body, like self-image, looking at yourself in the mirror, like loving myself for where I am. Because even though I've lost 20 pounds, like on the other side, like 20 pounds feels like this huge thing. But when you're there, you're actually there and you're like, oh yeah, I lost 20 pounds. Like the weight on the scale was a huge challenge at the beginning. Like I've heard women that are like, oh my God, like I cannot get on the scale. Like I'm dreading that moment when I first weigh myself. And it's like this huge like drama production, right? And so having that loving relationship with the scale where it's like just it's a part of my daily habits. And then if I kind of like get into a weight, like for example, like when I'm having my cycle, I might have judged myself in the past or like things might come up with that, but I understand because I've been tracking my weight and like kind of seeing my patterns that I understand how my body fluctuates when I have my cycle. It's actually kind of a hard question to answer because nothing has been like super hard in this process, right? I just felt like very like embraced and like all the support and the tools that I need are there to get through. So nothing's been like this huge, like, oh, this is so hard.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a trick question that you asked.
Sometimes it is the hardest part for people, right? Of course, there's times that we have uncomfortable emotions, like learning to deal with that. And a lot of times, right, if it's like, if you're used to using food as a coping mechanism or a distraction from feeling something uncomfortable, it's like when you take the food away, then you're kind of left with your emotions. So then, right, that's why like I think about like the key really is learning how to be with those emotions, process those emotions so that it's so easy then to choose food that serves you and to listen to your hunger. And when you do all that, but oftentimes it is surprising for so many people. And I kind of had this experience. I remember about 10 pounds before I got to where I like my naturally thin weight is. I was like, when is it going to get hard? Like, when is it going to feel impossible again? Like, when is it going to feel like it's torture? And it never showed up. And so, like, sometimes that is kind of a little bit of a mind trip for our brains because we're so used to kind of doing all of these crazy, like, tactics to our body to try to lose weight. And then we're like, wait, what? I don't actually have to do any of that.
Yes. Well, you have this way of explaining things as far as like how our brains work and how our bodies work. So I feel like when I go into these situations where a challenge comes up, and I can actually give like a specific thing that I've worked through that was hard for me, but like you explain things. So like when I go and I have that like an urge to eat, like I can hear you in my mind saying, yeah, it feels like something's picking your body up and you're just in the kitchen. I'm like, oh, so I have like your words and your coaching and training kind of running through my mind. And so I'm like, oh, this is what's happening right now. Okay, I can understand it.
Yeah.
So I think that really helps because I feel like sometimes the challenge is like when we're confused and we don't understand and we don't have an answer. But if there's an answer to it, then that kind of helps us like feel that sense of relief or there's a solution. But something I dealt with was feeling hungry after I ate. So especially there was like a period at nighttime where I would get kind of hungry and I was like, what's going on? And I would like, it was like this distraction. And so I was able to work through the emotion that I was feeling and what was happening and realize that I was feeling anxiety and stress and pressure and all of those things. And that when I ate even like a little handful of nuts, I was like super full. So it was like, I was definitely like feeling emotional hunger there. And that's evolved really quickly because now I'm like, I like to feel hungry because I'm like, I know that my body is, I'm losing weight. And so now it's like something that I want to feel versus like something that I would have been avoiding even just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so good. Right. And it's like the amount of time it takes to unwind some of that, right? It can happen like almost in an instant when you compare the lifetime that we've spent struggling with it. It's just kind of learning how to see it in your own mind happening. And then, like you said, like once you see it, you're like, oh, I understand what's happening. And now because I understand it, now I can change it. I think so often we just want to get to the change part, but it's like you can't ever make that permanent change if you don't understand what's creating it to be difficult in the first place. So I want to go back to the scale for just a minute because I know so many people struggle with the scale, and maybe for everyone, I love the scale. It's just like, I love it. It's a tool, but I want to like hear from you, like what makes that easy for you? Like, what are your thoughts about the scale that you like have embraced it as a tool to help you?
Okay, well, there's two things, and I think it's the tools. And one is that I bought a scale that I really love. And so the scale has an app with it, and it does like 17 different readings. So it measures like your body water, your BMI, like all of these different things. And so I can see like this, like kind of global progress with my body, not just in the weight. And it measures also down to like the 10th of the pound. So you can see like those minor fluctuations. So I think like having a really good scale that it's like fun and it's kind of like a game almost, I think is one thing, because then it's like you're kind of like I'm kind of also seeing like how my overall health is improving as I go through the process. So I think that's one thing. And then I do tracking. So I weigh myself twice a day. It's like being able to see that incremental progress as you go and be like, okay, like my weight last night was the same that it was last night a week ago. And I'll celebrate like today was my lowest AM weigh-in ever, or today was my lowest PM weigh-in ever. So it helps me to like celebrate these like incremental milestones as I go. And like you teach us, it's like it's objective data. Like it's just, so it helps us to like see that we're progressing, but it's a part of the journey. So I'm like in relationship with the scale versus it being like this like evil thing that I like have to dread and avoid.
Yes. And I love that because a lot of times people think, and I used to think this too, I went through a period of time of never weighing myself. That was like, well, if I weigh myself, I'm going to start obsessing, right? It's going to actually make it worse, right? And it only makes it worse when you have this like up and down relationship with it. But when you're saying like you just see it as data, it actually like you become unattached to it where you can just see it as like, oh, this is data and I can use it to serve me and to help me build the momentum that I want. And like you were saying, like with your cycle, like to understand, oh, like that makes sense. This is just that time of the month. And this is when I put on X number of pounds. Like there's such a much more like sense of like acceptance in your
Yes.
body and your body weight, where it's not like it's either going to make or break my day depending on the number.
Yes. And like also learning that like your body isn't super predictable.
Yeah.
Like I
Yes.
think you give a story about how like when you had your baby and like you had a 10-pound baby and then you lost 5 pounds or something like that.
Yes. Yes.
Like it doesn't.
It doesn't always make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's helpful, like to kind of learn, like, yeah, there are these patterns and I kind of like know where my weight fluctuates. And so sometimes between like the nighttime and the morning, like my weight might fluctuate by 1 pound. It might fluctuate by up to 3 pounds. And that isn't necessarily determined by like how little or much I eat the day before or how much activity I do. And so I think that helps with like not drilling yourself so hard about the scale either, to like realize that there's this like unpredictable factor in there that helps make it a relationship. Like you can't control other people and you can't like, have total control of like the number on the scale in terms of like what it's going to read the next day because of what you did or didn't do.
Yes. Okay. And it gets us out of this mindset of like, oh, I'm going to do let's say 1,200 calories a day, and like I'm going to lose this consistent amount of weight, and it's just going to go down in like a perfectly linear fashion, and it's never like I'm never going to have fluctuations, right? A lot of us have that perception that that's sort of what it should be like. And for everyone listening, like what I recommend in the program is, especially for people that have like a dread around the scale, so something that you can all try is to get on the scale twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening, so that you can see it's normal that your body fluctuates, so that you can, like, as you just start to get on the scale, you just stop making it mean so much about you. It just allows you then to have it be a tool to give you data, to give you insight, rather than this like monster in the closet that we're all like, I don't want to look at that. And it's so much more freeing that way.
It is.
So tell me, what would you tell yourself 6 months ago when you were like in the middle of exercising and not losing the weight you wanted, that version of you? What would you tell her that you know now?
I would tell her that she is an emotional eater.
Welcome.
Yes, she is an emotional eater, and that she stuffs away her emotions with food. Like that when hard emotions come up, that she goes for the food, and mostly the salty foods, and then sometimes the sweets, and sometimes alcohol. Yeah, that she's like really masking her emotions with food, and that exercise, it's not a trajectory that's going to get her the result that she's after. And trying to diet and go on like a special diet isn't going to do it either.
Yeah. Did you think of yourself as eating emotionally?
No, I had no idea. I had no idea what emotional eating was.
Yeah, I think that is one of the, like, it's so misconstrued, right? When we think about emotional eating, I don't know why, but this like Friends episode, I don't know if you ever watched Friends, like comes to mind, where it's like, I think Janice broke up with Chandler and Rachel and Monica are like, oh, well, here's the like fat-free ice cream, like have the fat-free ice cream. And then he did something else and it got worse. And they're like, well, now you get the real ice cream. Like that's what we sort of think, at least that's what I always thought like emotional eating was. It's like you had to be like really sad and like eating ice cream on the couch. It had to be some like devastation thing. And that's what it was.
And I think that's a good thing to add, is like also learning like the emotional eating with the happy emotions.
Yes.
Like when we feel happy and we're excited, sometimes we'll go overeat too, or we'll eat to celebrate. And so the emotional eating is on both, the full spectrum of emotions. It's not just the sad, depressed ones.
Yes. Yeah. I had a client a couple of months ago, and she's like, she just said to me over and over again, she's like, I never thought of myself like what you were saying. And my thought too about myself. She's like, I never thought of myself as an emotional eater, but she's like, it's all emotional. I'm like, I know. I think it's just, we don't want to think of ourselves as emotional eaters. And because there's some like taint to it or something, I don't know, right? But when you think about it, it's like all eating is emotional, even just quote unquote normal eating or regular eating or non-overeating. It comes from an emotion. It comes from a desire to eat. It's just understanding like how you want to use your emotions to fuel your eating behavior and how you don't want to use them. Tell me, I think this too is hard for people to sometimes understand. When we talk about like allowing your emotions, like letting your emotions pass through you, like not wanting to distract yourself with food from an emotional experience, like you were talking about, like the restlessness or the anxiety in the evening, like what allows you to do that?
Well, I think that first is like learning to feel my emotions. So like what you were just saying about the emotional eating, something that I was thinking about was how I think that we think that we're not emotional eaters because we kind of like numb ourselves or cut ourselves off from our emotions. And so that was a big problem for me. Oh, not a big problem, but it was a big habit of mine that I was just sort of like numb and detached from my emotions. And so then I would feel something really intense and I wouldn't know how to handle it. And so the way that I have learned to do that is definitely through coaching exercises that I've learned from you, sort of like brain dumping and kind of like different processes that we do to sort of like uncover like what is the emotion that I'm feeling right now, what's happening, and then actually like feel it through my body and just kind of sit with it, like and acknowledge it. And sometimes it happens really fast. And like, it's like, oh, it just happened and I just processed through it and it's okay. You can go buy a program or buy a course. I think for me, I'm very coachable and I love courses and I love training. And I'm the one who like goes through all the stuff and like implements everything. It's like go actually doing the work and doing the homework so that it can become like second nature has been the big
Yes.
thing.
Yes. And I love that you said that about how it just, now you notice sometimes it just like happens where you don't really have a lot of conscious thought about it. You kind of afterwards like, oh, I just felt some emotion. It kind of came through and it passed through my body because that is what is available to all of us, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's always that way, but when you teach your brain consciously in the beginning how to do that, it does just happen on autopilot because that's just what your brain is like, oh, this is what we do when this happens. And I think, but you tell me for you, one of the biggest things for me was realizing like, I'm the one that actually creates my feelings. Like I always thought like other people did, like what other people said, other things they did, right? And of course, there's still times I'm still human. My brain thinks it's from X, Y, and Z external thing and that it isn't my own thought process. But like being able to just recognize like I'm the one creating this feeling gives us so much safety in that, oh, it's okay to feel it because it's not happening to me. It's not like a caged animal that can't get out. But tell me what your experience has been like. And maybe you had that awareness that you created your feelings with your thoughts beforehand, but like what has given you that like safety to be like, I am willing to feel it?
So intellectually, I knew that like I created my thoughts and, you create your reality. Like intellectually, I was taught that, like, law of attraction type stuff. It's like you create so intellectually, I knew that and I had an awareness of it, but I didn't know how that operated like inside of me internally. And so, like, I remember like emotions would feel really foggy, like, whether it was a happy, a sad, whatever, it was just sort of like this fog and I didn't know how to like interpret it or understand it. And so I think that that was something, was like really learning how to interpret and understand like actually what I'm feeling and like name it and then say, okay, well, is this an emotion I want to feel or do I want to feel something different? And then going in and intentionally choosing the emotion that I want to feel. And something I've been working with that it is a little woo woo about like when we do the imprint. Like, I think that that's one of the most advanced manifestation techniques ever because, like, people say, like, you got to create the feeling and to actually like imprint the feeling in your body of what you feel like at the cellular level is incredibly powerful and incredibly advanced. So, being able to like name it, call it, feel it, experience it, and then say, I'm gonna like plug this other emotion in, like of what I really want to feel is incredible.
Yes. And I used to tell myself too, like, oh, I'm not into, some of that's like too like woo woo for
Yeah.
me and like all that stuff. Right. But it's like the more you do it, and this is why I think so many times I hear from people like, I'll think about my future self, like how she thinks and how she feels like when I get there. Kind of like I
Yeah.
don't have time for that now. And so one of the things we talk about and that what I would love for people to experience more of is like, it is that ability to feel that emotion in your body now. And like, that is the fastest way to get there. And when you learn how to make peace with uncomfortable emotions and you can deliberately feel how you imagine you'll feel when you're at your goal, when you're at the restaurant, when you're wherever, it actually makes it so that it's kind of like when you were talking about earlier with the scale. Once you get to your goal, it's like you've practiced being that version of you so much that it's like, duh, like you're not surprised.
Right. I had already kind of like tapped into that future me, like, cause I was like, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm not getting, so I was like very aware of like future me and what I wanted. I didn't know like the exact details, but I knew like I need help to like become her. And so I think I was like on that trajectory of that. But, I think for me, it was like clearing out all the fog of the emotions and like not really like understanding that like how I was just operating in general made it pretty much impossible to get that deep and connected, at that level. Right. So, of course, I probably would have been like, oh, I'll do it later or I'll wait. And I think part of it is we think that we don't have that much power too. Right. Like we think that we can't. And so that's why we like deflect or stall when really it's like we do have that power, but there's like some confusion around us like having that or not.
Yes. And when you lose some of that fear around emotions by being able to allow emotions that we do have that fear around or we want to avoid, it's like when you no longer have so much fear, and it doesn't mean all the fear needs to go away. It's like then you're able to drop into that future version of you, because it's not like I have to quick get to that version of me to run away from this other thing that I don't like over here, whatever that emotion is. It's like I can just not fear what I'm experiencing now and also imagine what I experience in the future. And then you get to enjoy whatever that feels like now. It's like you get to enjoy it now and in the future. So like it really is, to me, like the fastest way to get there. So tell me, what do you think has allowed you to have so much success? Like to go through in 3 months, lost 20 pounds, and just like have that willingness to be like, what I think of is like the best type of student, but without making yourself crazy with like, and it has to be perfect. And I have to be like the A+ student mode that I think of, where we're like, and I just have to memorize all the things. And when I do, I'll get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just committed to doing all of the work. I knew that if I didn't put in the work on my end, it like nothing was going to happen. So I committed to like, I went and bought like a 5-subject notebook from the office store. And then I categorized it kind of like based around like the different videos and everything, and decided like how I was going to go through the course. I just said, like, I'm doing this, like I'm in and I'm doing this. And so then I watched the videos, every night or, a couple a week. And I just made sure I got through all of the content. And then I applied everything that I learned as I went. And I just loved it. Like every time I just felt a lot of validation. I think that was the thing too, kind of like coming through and being like, oh my gosh, like all these things, like nobody has ever talked about this. And I felt a lot of shame. So it was like, there was a lot of like kind of healing and like release emotionally that was happening, and just like feeling validated and understood, that made me want to keep going and keep learning and exploring. And then the process of like getting to know myself, because again, like my why was like, I want to be healthier and like more vital and get younger as I age. And so I had this like big driver behind that as well, as far as why I'm doing it. And so I think those are the things, is just being committed and saying yes. And then I think every time we sort of like have a win, like I was looking through my numbers and I lost like the first 10 pounds within like 3 weeks or something. Like the first 10 pounds came off super fast. And so I was like, I was getting results really quickly. So like, why not keep going?
Yeah. Yes. So good. And why do you think in that you didn't need like external accountability, right? There's so many things that are out there that I think are like well-intentioned, where it's like, right, you have like a buddy or you have like someone else to help keep you accountable. And I tried a lot of that. I remember I used to like go to Thanksgiving and tell my sister, like, you have got, if you see me eating 2 things of pie, you have got, like, you have to make me stop. Someone has to make me do it. And shocker, it never works, right? Because no one else can do that for us. Like we have to develop that internal accountability, that we trust ourselves, we can be with ourselves no matter what. But so how did you like have some of that internal accountability where you didn't need someone else to be like holding your hand?
Mm-hmm. Well, self-coaching. I mean, even like just like kind of like the overview and understanding the model. of just like a very basic, like not doing like self-coaching every day, but just like having an overview of the model and hearing you talk about it and coach other people with it gave me that understanding that I could kind of like work through it pretty quickly. And so the self-coaching is everything because you learn to go to yourself to find answers. And like, I truly believe that like all of the answers and all of the wisdom are inside of us, and that we just usually we need to connect with other people to like unlock that.
Yes.
So the self-coaching and then how that's like deepened my journey with who I am in my relationship with myself. So like if I need to go and get accountability or whatever, like I know that we have 2 coaching calls a week, right? So like the one that I can come to, I'm going to come and I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to get support with that. But I would rather have the person who's the expert, who understands my personality type, that can advise me with expert guidance, give me the feedback, than the person who is not naturally thin. Because like the majority, like look around, like the majority, no judgment, but the majority of people are not naturally thin. So do you want somebody who's not naturally thin, like advising you and holding you accountable? They can't even do that for themselves. Like, no, thank you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And there's so much like freedom in that. Like, I think that is where like that freedom comes, is you don't need anybody else. Right. And like some of the insanity is we like, well-meaning, intentional people, right, are like, well, this is what you want to do, and I'm gonna hold you accountable and all these things, but they're not in your body. How are they, right? How are they supposed to know? Like, they found a way of eating that maybe works really well for them, or a program that works really well, or an excerpt, whatever it is that works really well for them. But like, we're the only ones that are in our body. So the only way to make it permanent is to understand our own brain, to understand our body, and no one else can do that for us. And sometimes for some people that's like, oh, but it's actually like the best news ever, because like relying on other people, they're going to mess it up a lot of the times. So it's just easier when it's just kind of on you.
Yes. Yeah. And like, there's no, like, you're not giving us like smoothie plans and salad recipes. Like, there's not a single recipe. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's not what this is about. And I think that that was what really attracted me to you. That when I looked around what other was up there, you know, people were posting pictures of salads, and it was all about the food, and these are the exercises. And I'm like, well, I'm already kind of doing that. Like, I'm already like on this, like, really kind of, you know, like, I have all these foods that I can't eat or choose not to eat because of my sensitivities. I'm already on a pretty like quote unquote restricted diet just because of my daily needs, and I'm exercising, and none of that's working. So I need this other approach that's not going to be about diet and exercise. It's going to be about the relationship to the self. So I think that people maybe, you know, if they experience that, you know, there's a reason that a fad diet is called a fad diet. And you hear the story about the woman who lost 60 pounds and then she gained 80 pounds back, you know, I mean, those stories are real for a reason, because they're not changing their relationship to themselves at like the internal thinking level.
Yes, 100%. And it's like, I always hated the concept of like a maintenance mode. So I was like, so I have to do this diet, drive myself crazy, learn how to do that, and then learn how to maintain it in some other way. Like, I was like, there has to be another way where you can actually lose weight in the same way you keep it off. And it doesn't have to be any like meticulousness to it.
Yes. Yeah, I love that and I saw that you just released a podcast on that. So I'm super excited to listen to that, because that's where I'm thinking, because I'm like, okay, I still have like my goal weight right now is about 27 to 30 more pounds. And I think in connecting with that future self, like, oh, what's it going to be like when when I'm at my goal weight? Like, what does my relationship look like then with my body? So I'm super excited to listen to your podcast.
Yeah, so good. And it's so fun, like imagining that, right?
Yeah.
And like, because what do you think will change for you? Like, if you just imagine it now, right? When it's like, when food is just like not really on your mind, your weight isn't on your mind, like, how do you think that'll change just like what you think about and how you live your day to day?
Well, it creates freedom. I mean, I think I'm already experiencing that, where I have a lot more like my head feels quiet. Like I just don't feel like noise and chaos. Like everything feels really quiet. And I really honor my processes and my decision making and looking in the mirror. Like the other night we went to a baseball game. So I'm kind of already there a little bit, but
Yeah,
like my husband and
totally.
I we go to a lot of baseball games. And I went to the baseball game and I was like looking at myself in the mirror. I was like, wow. Like the little thing ring of fat that hangs over your jeans. I'm like, oh, that's gone. Like I just wow, so I think it's just sort of like looking in the mirror and just like really like looking at your body and like loving it and appreciating it and just feeling that love and embrace for it. And then when you're at maintenance mode, it's just continuing on. I mean, it's just I don't know. I have to listen to the
Yeah.
podcast.
Because like, right? It's like how you are now, like, well, when you listen to the
Mhm.
podcast, but it's going to be very similar to how you are then, right? It's like you just
Right.
teach yourself how to be that person along
Yeah.
the way, and the weight loss becomes inevitable, right? It's like, I love that story of like looking at yourself in the mirror, right? You weren't like, oh, well, now I lost 20 pounds. So now I get to think that I look great, right? You're just like, oh,
Yeah.
no, of course I look great, right? It's just
Yeah.
like, it's so much more a part of who you are.
Yes, it is. And you know what's funny? I've noticed that because I do a lot of Zoom, I work remotely, right? So like
Hmm.
people can see the weight loss in my face. And this woman like 2 weeks ago was like, I said, well, I've lost this much. I still have some more weight to go. And she's like, you don't need to lose any more weight. I'm like, well, first of all, on Zoom, you can only see from here to here. But I know that that is something that will come up as as like I go to family events and things like that, that like the people that are going to say, you don't need to lose any more weight. And, those voices will come up
Yes.
and I will totally be able to handle it and have all the tools and resources I need to like sort through that.
Yes. Oh, that's so good because so often we think like we're going to lose this weight and everyone's just going to give us all of these compliments. And then
Oh,
either
yeah.
they don't or they're like, what are you doing? You should
Yeah.
stop losing weight. And you're like, there's
Yeah.
just like, there's no winning. It's why like you have to know how to have your own back and like feel so confident like with yourself so that it doesn't really matter what other people
Right.
say.
Right. Right. Because there's like, oh, she's got an eating disorder, or oh, this, or oh, that, just the stigmas. I mean, I think that that's a big part why like so much stuff comes up for us when we're trying to lose weight. And it's like, I think that you've got your mission, which is like, you can lose weight and it can be enjoyable and it doesn't have to be deprivation. And so like the messaging in the world is so different from what you're teaching, but like there is this other way that you can do it that's very healthy and good for your body and nourishing and loving.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like something too that I've just kind of learned to accept is like, I can just let people be wrong about me, right? It's like,
Right.
when people say those things to you, it's like,
Yes.
you can just be wrong. Like, it's okay. Like, people will tell me sometimes, like, oh, you promote being anorexic. And I'm like, I'm not even going to, like, you can just be wrong about that. Like, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to fight with them. We don't need to convince them. We don't need to tell them why. It's like, when you just have that confidence, you're like, it's okay. You can be wrong. And it's like, it's just, that's it, right? We're not like spinning in our minds trying to like figure out how to get people to like get on board. We're like, we can just kind of let it go.
Yes. Yes.
So tell me, what would you say? Imagine there's a woman sitting out there listening and she's like exhausted, dieting. She's like, I've been eating in 2-hour eating windows and like exercising and eating 1,000 calories a day, like driving herself crazy. And she's like exhausted. And she's like, I really like wish this was possible for me, but I don't really think it is.
I would say to her, look at yourself and what you're doing right now. Can you maintain this? Like, is what you're doing getting you the result that you're after? Like, obviously, you're like very disciplined and you like very or like regimented and routine. So, like, that's a plus. But your habits, are they or are they not getting you the result that you're after? Because you really have to look at like your actions and what you're doing, and then are they getting the results? And so if the answer is no, then I would say, are you open to getting support and help with this? to make a change in your life? And are you even like available to let it be easier for you? Because there is this other way. And if you weren't so obsessed every hour or 2 hours with your eating windows and all of that, what would that open up in your life in terms of freedom? Like, what would you like to replace that with? Is it like, more time with your kids, more time for your career? Because like all of that obsession is taking up energy in your life and attention. And then if that were gone, like, and you were losing weight, like what would open up for you? That's exactly what I would say to her.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Because like, I just like believe this so deeply. I'm like, our lives are so precious. To spend them obsessing about food and our weight is just like, it's just not how we're meant to live our lives. Like there is an easier way. And so more than anything, right? It's not even about the weight and the number on the scale. Like, yes, that's amazing, right? And we get to enjoy that and celebrate that. But the freedom that comes that you learn along that journey, like that is like the gift that I imagine would be incredible for everyone to have.
Yes. And in the same way that you can create, like, and have and experience your naturally thin body, like you also have that ability to use the tools that you learn in every area of your life, in your career, with your family, with your kids. Like it applies in all areas. And so it just like multiplies in terms of like the results that you can get for yourself.
Yes, totally. 100%. So is there anything else that you would like to share? Anything we didn't talk about? Anything else that's on your mind?
I think that we covered it. I mean, I think that I got to really share the journey and the experience. And I guess that, just speaking directly to that woman who's been listening to your podcast and who's been following you and clicking your videos and stalking your page, I'm speaking to you. And that if you feel like even remotely, like if what Laura is saying is like really speaking to you at a deep level, and you are getting value from her podcast, like go ahead and take the step of investing in yourself and joining Naturally Thin for Life with her, because what you're going to get out the podcast to me is like the cherry on top. Like if I just only listen to the podcast, I'd be like, yeah, this is good. And it's helping me. But like the full experience of the coaching and the videos and the resources and listening to other people be coached, like shortens the timeline, I think, of like getting the results that you want.
Yes. And people will ask me that sometimes. I do get questions where people are like, well, what's the difference between the program and the podcast? Right. And I'm like, the program is like everything you need. It's just, you have everything kind of at your fingertips, right? Like the podcast is, a lot of people have success just listening to the podcast, right? But it's as much as that can come out in a one-way conversation, right? Like when you were talking about like getting personally coached, like applying the tools to yourself, like there are many things you also learn in the program that just wouldn't really work for me to just like share on a podcast. You wouldn't get the same kind of transformation. So thank you for sharing that. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I loved hearing more about your journey. I don't necessarily always know, like I didn't know a lot of the things that you shared with me today. So that was amazing. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah. And I'd love to come back when I'm at like my 40 pounds and 50 pounds. And we'll talk about then and see where we're at.
Yes. I love it. Well, thank you so much. Friend, if you are loving what you are learning here on the podcast, you have to come check out my Naturally Thin for Life program. It is my on-demand lifetime access program where I teach you brand new concepts not taught here on the podcast. And I will walk you through exactly how to implement all of the tools I teach you here so that they become just a part of you. You will learn exactly how to understand your specific brain and your specific body so that you become naturally thin for the rest of your life and you no longer struggle with your weight. Inside of the Naturally Thin for Life program, you can also receive live help so that you consistently make progress and reach your goal. I will teach you how to accelerate your naturally thin journey in a sustainable way so that the change becomes permanent. The best part is that it's risk-free. You either love it or I will give you your money back. If you are ready to finally be naturally thin for life, join us at lauradixoncoaching.com/work with me. That's LAURADIXON coaching.com and click on the Work With Me tab. I cannot wait to see you there.